All right, so let's start. Question number one starts with border security. Should be ready to roll. While Arizona's southern border is more secure than it was 2 years ago, border security remains a top concern for voters and continues to impact communities statewide. As governor, what specific actions would you take to combat drug smuggling, human trafficking, and other criminal activity tied to the border?
Thanks for that question. The first thing that I think we need to do is to make sure that the Border Security Strike Force is fully funded, fully equipped, and we have interagency cooperation. That's where we would begin. The second thing I'll do is I will appoint a border czar to help coordinate where we need it. And the third thing I think that needs to happen is we need to have to acknowledge that we need to have cooperation with federal agencies as well and federal law enforcement. We've got to make this a real priority. We are one of only 2 states with increasing fentanyl overdose deaths, and we need to make sure that we are addressing that. The other thing is I think we're going to need to work with some of our tribal partners and make sure that we're getting the cooperation that we need and make sure that they feel that we're respecting them as we proceed in this as well.
Question number 2 is about pension reform. Arizona enacted significant reforms to the public safety personnel retirement system in 2011. They did it again in 2016. While those reforms were intended to strengthen the long-term financial stability of the system, they also reduced pension benefits for newly hired first responders. Today, there's a growing concern that some of those changes may have gone too far and are now contributing to the recruitment and retention challenges. One of the most significant provisions requires officers to reach age 55 before they can begin collecting their pension, regardless of their years of service. If legislation reached your desk allowing a public safety employee to retire and collect their pension after 25 years of service without a minimum age requirement, would you sign it? Why or why not?
Yeah, I would sign that bill. Look, one of the biggest problems that we have in law enforcement today is recruitment and retention. And we are competing with agencies not just in Arizona, but we're competing with agencies from other states. So I think reform of the system is important. One of the things I will do is put together a task force for retirement reform or pension reform that includes law enforcement, citizens, municipalities, principalities, now I won't go that way, but a lot of people who actually know this and are serious about making meaningful reform. We have to probably make meaningful reform right now. There's nothing more important to me than public safety, because without public safety, you can't have a free society, and the founders knew that. That is the constitutional prescriptions that they put in. And so if we're going to do that, we need to make sure that we're retaining our forces, make sure that they're adequately taken care of on the back end as well as the front end.
One of the big topics facing law enforcement right now is technology. Technology such as real-time crime centers, license plate readers, facial recognition have become critical tools for solving crimes, but they also raise legitimate privacy concerns. As governor, how would you balance giving law enforcement the technology it needs to protect the public with reasonable safeguards for individual privacy?
So one of the big problems that we have, I'm going to liken this just right frankly to some of the federal issues. So the federal issue, for instance, that was most salient here, which is an analog to what you're talking about, is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And the FISA Act has been sorely abused and needed some significant reforms. And that is where I've actually reached across the aisle. I've worked with people as disparate as Pramila Jayapal, Jerry Nadler, and actually Warren Davidson on my side of the aisle, Ron Wyden from Oregon, Democrat Senator for Oregon. We have worked to try to put safeguards in place. Now, you've given a panoply of technology. Some of it is more prone to privacy invasion than others. And it seems to me that the public is now made it clear that there are aspects of this that they don't like. And we actually have some of our law enforcement agencies and officers backing away. We have municipalities backing away from some of these as well. We need to make sure we have the technology necessary to protect the public, but you have a very delicate balancing act that you're going to have to deal with, not the least of which, and I'm going to say it, you've got the flock camera and the technology that allows for linking that camera, or that license reader with your cell phone. And people are going to absolutely freak out if they realize that, and I think many of them do, and we're going to have to respect a lot of those issues too. I mean, you have some serious constitutional constraints that we have to be careful with.
The next is corrections staffing. Arizona's correctional system continues to struggle with chronic understaffing, mandatory overtime, and compensation challenges. As governor, what specific steps would you take to improve pay and working conditions and make Arizona more competitive in recruiting and retraining correctional officers?
So I'm pleased to tell you that I'm endorsed by multiple federal prison employee unions because of my position that I've taken at the federal level with regard to trying to help correction officers at the federal level, because you're the front end, the corrections officers are the back end, and they deal with these things, and it's a very difficult job. I've actually toured our prisons, and I would tell you that we're going to have to, they need more pay, they need better training, they need better conditions, and they need more support, because right now their morale is incredibly low, whether it's federal or stateside, and we want to make sure that they're taken care of. I mean, better equipment, better training, better pay, and all in all, give them the respect they deserve, because they are just as integral to the judicial system as any other law enforcement officer.
The next addresses the fentanyl crisis. Arizona spent years fighting the fentanyl crisis, yet the drug continues to claim lives and strain communities across our state. As governor, what would you do differently? How would you balance enforcement, prosecution, prevention, and treatment to produce measurable results?
So this is kind of covered in the very first question that we were talking about, but now you're asking some additional components. So I think you need to make sure that we have the task force in place to try to interdict human and drug trafficking. We know where they're coming across on our southern border. We know where they are, and so this is where it's important that we have cooperation with with tribal agencies, as well as with our counties, as well as with our local jurisdictions, but also working in tandem with our federal jurisdictions. I mean, that's on the front end. I also think that what we need to do at the state is probably do something that we've tried to do at the federal level, and that is increase penalties, particularly if someone is distributing or selling fentanyl that results in a death. At the federal level, we are trying to make sure that penalty is commensurate with actual manslaughter or murder. So those are the types of penalties that need to be put in place. The other aspect, treatment. I think you're talking about treatment. So a lot of what happens on the treatment side is people don't get a lot of shots at fentanyl because it's so dangerous, and the fentanyl, you've gone from 2 grains being fatal now to actually vapor or powder that you can't even see being fatal. It's going to take continued public awareness campaigns. We need to make sure that we are providing that support. Those are some basic techniques, I think.
All right, the final question is about recruitment and retention. Arizona law enforcement agencies, from rural sheriff's offices to major metropolitan forces, continue to struggle with serious staffing shortages. Beyond one-time funding or grants, what specific policies would you pursue to make Arizona a national leader in recruiting and retaining qualified law enforcement officers?
Well, first of all, I think what we need to do is make sure that our officers, whatever agency they're at, feel respected and have hope, that they understand pretty clearly that they're going to have a governor and me who will stand behind them and will support them. And that means where we have infrastructure needs, we need to take care of our infrastructure needs. That means where we have pension problems, we need to have an ability to reform the pension to make it worthwhile. That means that we need to continually reach out with our law enforcement partners so we don't view each other as adversaries, but instead we view ourselves as collaborators to keep the public safe. That means that where it's necessary, you provide the pay infrastructure that works best to keep these people together and provides a recruiting opportunity. Every agency, as far as I know in the state, seems to have vacancies. And we want to make sure that we fill those vacancies with people who want to be there, who are qualified to be there. That means we provide them upfront training. We provide them the equipment that they need. In fact, when I was in the legislature, I started the Law Enforcement Equipment Fund. And that's one more thing that I think is pretty indicative of where we need to be. We need to make sure that our law enforcement officers know we need them, we want them, we're going to support them.
All right, so each of the candidates, we're asking them the same 6 questions, and at the end of the question answer, we have 20 minutes allotted. We've gotten finished in under that 20-minute time. Congressman, you've got 2 minutes to make comments to the crowd at your discretion. What? Then you're done.
Wow, that was, I feel like that was a lightning round. First of all, thank you for what you do. Thanks for having me here. I love being able to discuss this, and I hope that you understand that my commitment is to make sure you can do your job the safest way you can, make sure that you can live the American dream and support your family, and that you can go home safely at the end of every shift. That's important to me, and it's important that we work together and collaborate. I hesitate to say this, but I feel like I have to say it. I'm going to be excused from this room. I am not even permitted to stay here when my opponent is going to give her speech. I don't get that, but that's okay. That's okay. All I'll tell you is I am prepared to go step in right away to be a governor. I know how the state legislature works. I worked there. I know how the feds work. I worked there. I love this state. I know you love this state. And quite frankly, I don't see how we are going to be a safe, free society living the American dream without making some changes. I support you. I'll make sure that you feel that support when I'm the governor. And with that, I'll just say, God bless you all. Thanks for what you do. Please be safe out there. And until we meet again, God bless you all. Thank you.